Hey there, my friends out there. Welcome to Gamers with Games. Hope you guys have been doing well since Thanksgiving. Well, it's already December 2015, and the hype for Star Wars is at an all-time high. We have Star Wars The Force Awakens coming out very, very soon. It's amazing that we're finally getting Episode 7. Being a Star Wars fan for life, as you guys can see, I'm wearing my jacket here. Just got this bad boy not too long ago, so again, you guys can see I'm pretty excited for Star Wars The Force Awakens. So it's only natural that I eventually talked about Star Wars Battlefront from EA on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Now, if you haven't seen it already, I probably have posted about it on my Twitter recently. If you haven't followed me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter. You're going to get a whole bunch of cool stuff. But I actually wrote a review for Star Wars Battlefront from EA over on thecoalition.com. I'm going to leave like an annotation around here and have a link in the description box below so you guys can check it out. We're going to talk about it in a little bit of different detail here exclusively for the video. So I ended up giving the game around the 80s mark, around somewhere, I believe it was about 84, 85, give or take, or somewhere around there. I know it was around that 80s range that I ended up giving the actual game for my review. And the reason why is for a number of different reasons. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There are a couple issues I'm going to get into later with Star Wars Battlefront that I have. However, there is a lot of good stuff in this game, and EA and DICE really did a great job not only making the game feel like classic Star Wars from that same feeling that you get from watching the original trilogy and seeing all those cool stories unfold, and not feel exactly like how it was in the prequels. Hardcore Star Wars fans will know exactly what I'm talking about. But for the guys out there that aren't really big Star Wars fans, that are really kind of like immersed in the mythology of it and playing all these different games and such, what that really means is that really kind of going back to the special elements, and like the sounds and the visuals, that really made Star Wars, the classic trilogy anyway, be so special for ages and for like an entire generation. Now, what are some of the cooler aspects of Star Wars Battlefront? Number one, the sounds and the visuals. Phenomenal on every stretch of the imagination. If you guys haven't seen my videos that I actually did some playthroughs of some of the modes of Star Wars Battlefront before Thanksgiving, you guys could see in the actual visuals, even though the image quality for the video is kind of but the visuals for the game are fantastic. They use a special technique that allows them to kind of really render everything out really nicely, have that nice glistening sheen on stuff that's shiny, or that dirty grime on like, harsh looking metal, or kind of like, junk looking stuff that looks like it's been kind of like been through hell, through an entire like battle in the Star Wars universe. Visuals look fantastic. The sound is phenomenal because, again, you got those classic blaster sounds, you got that score and those musical kind of like pieces from John Williams that play throughout the entire time you're playing on and offline. Simply fantastic, and an awesome musical score. And they even threw in a couple original stuff in there as well, on top of all the John Williams stuff, which is great. It's fantastic. That's classic Star Wars for you. Now, getting into the gameplay specifically, there is a bunch of different modes that you can play, both single player and also multiplayer. Single player being on the light side, it's much more stuff geared towards like survival or like a horde mode-esque type of thing, as well as also training modes that, it's kind of a little bit of a downer because, for me specifically, I was hoping for a campaign like many other people out there, and a lot of the little small cutscenes that are scattered throughout your experience while playing through the single player modes really begs for an actual single player story-based campaign in this game. Hopefully in any of the DLC that's coming with the Season Pass, DICE can remedy that and actually give us something that really kind of plays to that element. Because it's a damn shame seeing these kind of awesome looking cutscenes that really scream, again, classic Star Wars and like real great cinematic storytelling that could be told there, and they never really go full-fledged with it. So that's a damn shame. But the multiplayer is where it's at with this game. Again, you got these huge 20v20 battles that's called Supremacy, that has a bunch of different things happening on any of the game's 4 major maps, which is also another little bit of a downer, that they actually only have 4 major planets that you actually explore, with a 5th one coming very soon. We're actually going to be getting the DLC for the Battle of Jakku, which is going to lead directly into Episode 7, or at least give some nods in there. Hopefully they actually throw in some actual heroes from Episode 7 from the actual movie. There's a possibility for that. They haven't announced anything as of yet. But anyway, 20v20, again, you're fighting for control of specific points of interest on a map until you either dominate the map or time runs out and you're pretty much the more dominant force on the area. That's how the Supremacy gameplay actually plays out. Very similar to classic Battlefront modes, not exactly the same because, again, classic Battlefront from Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 was based off control points, specifically where you had to go different points on the map and actually capture these specific points. Supremacy is very similar to that, only you can only capture specific ones in order to kind of advance your forces forward without being able to have the ability to go behind your opponent and capture a command post all the way at the end of the map in order to kind of like, mess up the dynamic between the struggle of the rebels and the Imperial forces. Which also, by the way, before I continue, no Clone Wars stuff in this actual game. There's no clone army, there's no, there's no droid army that's actually in this actual map, unlike previous games. So it's just pretty much galactic civil war throughout. But anyway, some of the other game's modes, you got a much more tactical, kind of like a search and destroy type of mode called Heroes vs. Villains, allowing you to play as any one of the 6 different heroes or villains that's actually in this game. And the idea is to kill all the opposing team's heroes or villains in order to win the match. You have the ability sometimes to play as Han Solo, Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, or Darth Vader, Boba Fett, and the Emperor. And that's very cool. It allows you to kind of get your chance to play as one of the game's many heroes in this game. However, unlike in the other modes, this one actually has a more of an overabundance of heroes as compared to like something like Supremacy or any of the other kind of like game modes that are in this game. And that is either hit or miss, depending on what your flavor is. If you want much more of the focus on more infantry and kind of like you being a soldier in this massive battle, definitely check out one of the other game's modes. But if you actually really want to have your due as a hero in this game, then definitely check out Heroes vs. Villains. Now, some of the other game modes in Star Wars Battlefront from EA is a little bit on the weaker side. You have Fighter Squadron, which puts everybody in kind of like starfighters, which is very, very cool. However, it also brings up another downer about this, in that the fact that there's no space battles, unlike previous Battlefront titles. This is, again, either hit or miss for some people, and a lot of people were very down about it when the game was announced. But playing it, you know, I love the controls for the actual starfighters. A lot of people seem to get bent out of shape with them, but it didn't bother me too much in my time spent with the actual game. But I will say that sometimes during the starfights, actual dogfights in the starfighter mode, you actually find yourself a little bit either getting destroyed really easily because of your inability to actually control the ship, or because there's so much chaos going on in the battlefields that you never really could get your bearings right by actually flying around. And also the special hero starships, the Millennium Falcon and Slave One, which seem to be the only 2 ones that are actually there. I never really saw like a Darth Vader TIE Fighter or anything of the sort, or Luke Skywalker's X-Wing, something like that, which would have been cool. But the 2 hero ships that are in this mode are a little bit overpowered in my opinion. I feel like they could take a lot of damage, which granted, most of the heroes in this game can do so. However, with the starships, it feels like they linger for way too long. They're a little bit overpowered with their firepower and their missiles and such, and it feels like they absorb a lot of the actual bullets which you could fire at them if you're on the opposing side. So that hopefully could get balanced out with a patch or an update down the line. Some of the other modes, again, you have Droid Escort, or kind of like you have to be able to capture these droids that are on a map. You have your traditional team deathmatch, which is just, again, 2 sides. I believe it's about 16 players or 20 players, 10 on 10, something like that, where you just have to kill the most amount of people from the opposing team. And that's kind of blasé compared to some of the other game modes. But the other one that really is a highlight that I really recommend that you guys play more of besides Supremacy is Walker Assault. Now, they've kind of balanced out a little bit of the game mode from the actual beta and also in some patches that have released recently. However, the actual game mode is so much fun because, again, it feels like you're actually trying to go for an objective. And you, as the Imperials, you have to advance the AT-AT walkers to a certain point in order to destroy like a particular area of the Rebel base. Or as the Rebels, you have to stop them by actually capturing control points and having Y-Wings actually come in and actually mess up the shielding of the AT-ATs, in which everybody could just dog the AT-ATs afterwards. And if that's not enough, the Rebels also have the ability to use snow speeders to use the tow cable to take down the AT-ATs. That's very cool, and it's a little bit different when you're playing on one of the game's other maps besides Hoth, which again, very famous from The Empire Strikes Back from playing the actual Battle of Hoth sequence. You could actually have that same type of sequence, but a little bit of a different flavor on either Endor, Tatooine, or Sullust. That's pretty damn cool. And also, again, just the dynamic of the way that the match actually plays out is pretty awesome, and a little bit of a different flavor from Supremacy, where you're just capturing specific points. Everybody has their roles, everybody has their different types of kind of like objectives that they need to do in order to contribute to their team winning. That's very cool. So, with that being said though, a couple other little notes that I want to throw in here before I wrap this video up. Some of the spawns need to kind of be fixed up. I always found myself, at least a numerous amount of times where I would actually spawn into a map and immediately be killed by an enemy that I was either in their crosshairs, or I spawned way too close to them, or spawned close to like an explosion, like a thermal detonator. That's always annoying, and I felt that that was a little bit imbalanced, especially in certain maps where you feel like one side should have a little bit of a leg up from the other. But again, the spawn getting just really gets to you and really kind of messes up your game overall. Besides that, also, some of this stuff that you unlock, the unlocking system and the leveling up system in Star Wars Battlefront, I feel needs a little bit of tweaking as well, because it doesn't make any sense to me where you have to be able to rank up to maximum level in order to choose the species, whether besides human, in order to have as your avatar, which really doesn't affect anything in the gameplay whatsoever. I mean, I can understand that for like guns and like different perks and such, which is like this whole card system, which is like very similar to the loadout system from Call of Duty. We choose specific weapons and choose specific secondary weapons and perks and such, and that's fine and dandy. I think that some of the weapons and stuff are a little bit overpowered, but I can understand leveling up to a certain level to unlock certain things. But when it comes to avatar items, when it's stuff that's just more aesthetic than anything else, where it's just for looks and it really is not going to have any sort of impact on the gameplay, on the different modes of which you're actually playing, that I have a problem with, because it just feels unneeded. On top of the fact, right? On top of the fact that you actually have to spend credits which you earn as you level up in order to unlock this stuff. So not only do you have to get up to the maximum level, but you also have to spend all these credits and use up an actual slot from one of your actual perks and your loadout and stuff, which could get very annoying at some point. So hopefully that gets a little bit tweaked and actually gets adjusted at some point, because it just seems very unneeded to me, you know, to actually level up to maximum level just to get one specific item. I know many other games have this, and don't get me wrong, I've seen plenty of other games like Call of Duty and other games like that have that ability, that have that sort of kind of like option. I just was never really a fan of it, and especially in something like Star Wars, where maybe I wanted to play as like, you know, a Mon Calamari or something. It just feels very kind of like cliche and very kind of like, you know, unneeded for that restriction. Besides that, again, I mentioned the leveling. There's a diorama mode, which kind of like is your achievements, and it's kind of related to a bunch of the trophies or the achievements in the game, depending on which platform you're playing on. It also feels kind of very kind of like cliche and blasé. It's just there. You don't really get anything out of it, but just looking at a 3D model of something from in-game, that could have just been taken out and just you would have never really realized it. So, other than that, overall, decent game. If you're a big Star Wars fan, I really highly recommend you actually pick this up. It's probably one of the best iterations of the Star Wars Battlefront series to date, as far as like aesthetic-wise and sound-wise. Gameplay can be argued hit or miss, again, especially if you're a fan of the space battles from previous titles, or some of the balancing and the class-based system from the older games. But overall, still a fun, solid game to play with some of your friends who are also Star Wars fans. So, that's all I got to say about EA's Star Wars Battlefront. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Tell me what you guys think. If you guys have been enjoying Star Wars Battlefront up to this point, if you guys are excited about Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, put it in the comment section below, and I will talk to you guys again real soon. So, peace out, and stay epic, everybody.